Good day everyone. Today we have 6 topics need to talk about. The first one is forensic anthropometry, portrait parley, forensic odontology, forensic anthropology, forensic serology, and DNA fingerprinting. So let's start with forensic anthropometry. Forensic anthropometry. Forensic anthropometry is designed by Alphonse Bertillon, began in 1890 and lasted approximately 20 years before being replaced by fingerprint identification. Alphonse's father, Louis Bertillon, a famous French physician and anthropologist, largely influenced Alphonse's knowledge and interest in the human skeletal system. With help from his father, he was able to successfully develop and implement anthropometry in 1882. This system consisted of using calipers and other measuring devices to take 11 specific body dimensions. Alphonse took each measurement 3 times and recorded the average of the 3 on his card files. Anthropometric system made it possible to distinguish between two distinct persons. It did not bring refutable proof of an individual's identity, while not fully managing to fix this major flaw. Bertillon designed an incremental physical description system comprised of 4 areas. The first area is anthropometry, a field enriched with new typological description of the ear, nose, and iris. And the next is an incremental, detailed physical description method, which he dubbed portrait parley, or spoken portrait of the body and face. The next one is photographic description, which he continually enhanced by defining and refining a general protocol for face and profile views, in practice inventing the mugshot. And the last one is an inventory and precise mapping of all specific marks to be found on the body, such as scars, tattoo, moles, and etc. I hope that you learned something about forensic anthropometry. And now, let's talk about portrait parley. Portrait parley. This two French word means speaking likeness. Portrait parley can be defined as a rigorous system for verbal description of physical characteristic of the subject. There are traits described in Bertillon card, such as facial traits, eye shapes, chin types, lips types, ear types, skin color, hair types, eyebrow shapes, eyes color. And now, let's move on to forensic odontology. Forensic odontology is a dental analysis, examination, and evaluation that serves as evidence. And some suggest that teeth are better sources of DNA than skeletal bones because it can determine the age and identification of the person to whom the teeth may belong. So the forensic dentists need to incur data and information to help the authorities in identifying the person involved in the case. Odontological identification. Odontological identification is based on systematic comparison of pre- and post-mortem dental characteristic of individual based on dental record and the supporting radiographs. But this technique is complicated by the trauma to jaws, inadequate antemortem dental information. According to American Board of Forensic Odontology, dental identification can be divided into 4 types. The first type is positive identification. The antemortem and postmortem data match to establish that it is from the same individual. The second type is possible identification. The antemortem and postmortem data have consistent features, but because of quality of the records, it is difficulty to establish the identity. The third one is insufficient evidence. The data is not enough to form the conclusion. And the last one is the exclusion. The antemortem and postmortem data clearly inconsistent in many cases. Dental identification, fingerprint, and DNA are most commonly used and often complement each other. And now, let's talk about our fourth topic, which is forensic anthropology. A forensic anthropology is kind of assessment used as medical legal to identify an individual that remains unsolved. This is also a special subfield of physical anthropology that focuses in skeletal analysis and techniques to assist in solving criminal cases. Forensic anthropologists are the ones who's responsible in gathering data and analyze evidence to help in terms of establishing identity. They commonly use it in individuals that are brutally disrupted, decomposed, burned, destroyed, mutilated, or other possibilities in causing a difficulty in, in recognizing someone. However, it just doesn't focus on the death, but also in the living, which provide confirmation such as chronological age for the purpose of judicial accountability, immigration, or asylum status. There are 4 bases of primary identification: the skeletal developmental age, biological sex, living structure, and ancestry or racial affiliation. In addition, there are secondary traits that can resolve cases or confirming identity, like body modification, an evidence or surgical intervention including scars and prosthetics, an evidence of trauma and chronic heart and soft tissue disease that may leave characteristic macroscopic and microscopic lesions on surviving tissues. Forensic anthropologists can come up estimation to the elapsed time from time of death and assessment of taphonomy, which deals to modification of human by taphonomic factors in the burial environment. And now, let's talk about the forensic serology. Forensic serology is the application of the study of blood, semen, saliva, and other body fluids to legal matters. The field generally is comprised of detection of enzymes and antigens as in identification of seminal stains or blood typing and DNA typing. The serology section of a forensic laboratory may deal with any or all of the following: First one is blood typing, characterization of unknown stains, blood spatter analysis for crime reconstruction, paternity testing, semen identification in sexual assault cases, and DNA typing for identification of victims and suspects. This is the blood type examination of human being, where the blood type can be determined by the reaction of an chemical applied to a drop of blood. And finally, let's talk about to our last topic, which is DNA fingerprinting. DNA fingerprinting was invented in 1984 by Professor Sir Alec Jeffreys after he realized you could detect variation in human DNA in form of these mini satellites. DNA fingerprinting is a technique that simultaneously detects lots of mini satellites in the genome to produce a pattern unique to an individual. This is a DNA fingerprint. The probability of having two people with the same DNA fingerprint that are not identical twins is very small. Just like your actual fingerprint. Your DNA fingerprint is something you are born with it. It is unique to you. There are various methods for analyzing DNA to establish if two samples are the same or different. This is sometimes referred to as DNA fingerprinting. For example, two clone pieces of DNA can be studied in the laboratory to determine if they have portion in common and thus overlap with one another. In a different setting, such as a crime scene, DNA sample can be collected and analyzed to determine if they match DNA sample obtained from suspect of that crime. If two DNA samples have the same fingerprint, then there is a very high statistical likelihood that they came from the same person. Such an approach can also be used to establish paternity.